law of receptivity says that the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. What does this mean? It's really nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you've also got to breathe in. Mm-hmm. It's not one or the other. It's an and. It's both. You breathe out carbon dioxide and you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. Mm-hmm. They're
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to another episode of today's Medical Sales Leader, where I have somebody who I have been dying to speak with for so long, since I read one of my most favorite books called The Go-Giver. And the reason I want to chat about this today with Bob is because he has really given us a nice fresh perspective on getting out from under that crushing quota and refocusing your business, your sales career, and your life on the theory of going and giving and what that can bring up for us and how it can help our entire ecosystem thrive as well as ourselves. So Bob, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Florida this morning. I am so grateful to have you here.
My pleasure, Claire. Great to speak with you. Love the work you're doing. And it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much. Well, if I can, I'm going to introduce you here for everybody who doesn't yet know Bob Burg. And please take this moment. I demand it. Go follow him right now. Go check out his work. But for over 30 years, Bob has been successfully showing entrepreneurs, leaders, and sales professionals how to communicate their value and accelerate their business growth, which we talk about all the time, right? There's so many different ways to do it. But for years, he was best known for his sales classic, Endless Referrals. And it's his business parable, The Go-Giver, that I love. He co-authored it with, John David Mann. And it's created a worldwide movement. In fact, just behind the scenes before we were jumping on the show, we were talking a little bit about how now Bob is putting together even mastermind retreats around this kind of principle. So really exciting stuff. It's part of a 4-book series, but The Go-Giver itself has sold more than 1 million copies and has been translated into 30 languages. It was rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of the most motivational books ever written. And it was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. He's the co-founder of the Go-Giver Community Network, which I hope we could talk a little bit about today and how people could tap into that. And it's the first of its kind online business community created by and for Go-Givers. He's an advocate, a supporter, a defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money that one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. So he's also an unapologetic animal fanatic, which I am as well. And he's served on the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption and Clinic in his town of Jupiter, Florida. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think that you've got some pretty incredible things you've accomplished so far. And I know this must feel like just the beginning once you get into this mentality. So tell me a little bit more about, let's start with the Go-Giver, Bob. What was your motivation for creating something that wasn't just a book about sales or a book about, how to sell better or how to motivate people in their life? Why did you go with this parable form?
So back in the 90s, the mid 90s, I had my first book out, which was called Endless Referrals. The subtitle was Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And it was a book for people who were, entrepreneurs, salespeople. They knew they had a great product or service. It brought immense value to those they served, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable going out into their communities and building the kinds of relationships that would cause people to want to do business with them personally, as well as refer them to others. So it was really a how-to guide, a system, if you will. And I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles, the key being predictability, right? If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired results of B, then you know all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and you'll get the desired results of B. So it was a how-to. The premise was, and something I've been saying for 30, 35 years, however long I've been doing this, is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. So the book did well, but it was a how-to book, and I'd always, since I'd been in sales, I'd always read and enjoyed business parables. What's a parable? It's a story, right? And so it's a work of fiction, but based on certain immutable laws and principles. And I think we all kind of know intuitively that stories connect on a deeper level than a how-to. And I love how-to books. I've got hundreds of them. I've read hundreds of them, if not thousands. And I've written how-to books. But I always thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take this basic relationship building principle, which works in terms of, as you said, whether it's, success in terms of business, financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, doesn't matter. Certain principles that work across the board. And put it in a story form, a short story that would really connect on a heart-to-heart level, that people would be able to grasp, and that brought something that would hopefully be of value to the marketplace. So I kind of sat on that idea for a long time, and then in the early 2000s, what they call the early aughts, right? The zeros. I was writing a monthly column for a magazine that was, and John David Mann, my co-author, now soon to be co-author, was at the time was the editor-in-chief. And he was great. I mean, he wasn't as well known as he is now, where he's now the co-author of lots of great books, including a few mystery novels. This guy's so talented. But back then, I just knew him. He was brilliant, okay, and nice guy. And I shared with him this little idea I had. Kind of, it hadn't really been fleshed out, but I knew it was about the fact that the most successful people, the sustainably successful people, they're always focused on the other person. They're giving value all the time. So, it's funny. He was busy at the time. So his one time, he and his fiance were in Tampa visiting her mom, on his mom, and they actually took a 4-hour drive across the state to Jupiter, where I live. We had about a 3-hour dinner and discussed the idea of the book. And he said, let me think about it. About 3 weeks later, he calls me and says, I think we got something here. Let's do this thing. And, and by the way, so it only took us a few months to write it. And again, he was the lead writer. He's so talented. But we got turned down by 24 New York publishing houses over the course of a year before finally it was picked up by Portfolio, a division of Penguin Random House. So, it turned out we found the right partner, right? And when that was ready to happen, it happened. So that was good. But that's really how it came about. We both kind of felt like this is a message that is needed right now, and that it was a good time for it, and we felt it would be accepted. And that's really how it came about.
So, and for anyone who hasn't read this book, and like I said, please go out and grab it today. The Go-Giver is phenomenal. It's a story, it's a parable about a young man named Joe. He's struggling to achieve success in his sales career. He feels stuck, he feels frustrated. And then he meets a wise man named Pindar, who teaches him not just like sales success, but the 5 laws of stratospheric success. Okay. And, I think what really struck me about the way that you shared this story, and yes, I'm dangling those 5 laws, so don't worry, we'll get to that in just a minute. But, I think what really struck me about your story is that I felt like so many of us can relate to being Joe, to feeling like we're in Joe's shoes. In fact, a lot of the thoughts Joe thinks when he initially meets Pindar about how he's trying to land this major client. He's got this great big competitor who's just crushing it, and he can't figure out how to unlock that success for himself. And lo and behold, it's the end of the month, and here comes quota, right? We're down to the wire. And so for me, Joe was a very personal character because I think especially in medical sales, we've all felt that crush, but also the next level of that is that it's not just have you, sold your certain amount that you need to, or have you landed the certain amount of accounts you need to, that there's a patient on the other end of that. And so it's sort of this double layer of pressure, right? So I'd love to talk a little bit about I'd love to know rather, if you felt like Joe at any point in your career and how sort of these laws emerged for you to eventually write about them.
Yeah, I was definitely Joe. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, as you said, have been. That's kind of why we named him Joe. And if he was a woman, it would have been Josephine, like, the average Joe or Josephine. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And with me, it was that I had gotten into sales after a short career in broadcasting, and I did okay in sales. I had studied, I had learned it, and did well. And but a couple of years into it, I went to work for another company selling a high ticket item, and I was just not doing well. I started out in a slump and was having trouble getting out of it. And the more I focused on myself and getting out of my slump, the less I thought about the customers, and the more of a slump I were in. So So at one point I came back to the office, and I must have had a really disgusted, depressed look on my face when one of the older people at the company, he was not in the sales department. I think he was an engineer or something. But he was one of these guys we've all known that, he didn't say much, but whenever he did, it was always something profound. And so fortunately, I think he saw me sort of as Gus in the story saw Joe in the book, as that kind of young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive potential, but not in any way fulfilling his potential because his focus was on the wrong place. And mine was as well. And this older guy said to me, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, sure, please do. I need it. He said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money, and you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It isn't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And, Claire, that's kind of when it hit me that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is never actually about the product or the service, as important as those are. That's not what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's that person whose life you're trying to add value to. In a sense, you could say it's about that other person's life being better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we can approach sales from that foundational premise, now we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really powerful. And, for most people listening to this, they're measured by the numbers, right? How much money they bring in, how many accounts that they get. But at the end of the day, I don't feel that gives many people fulfillment in the long term. Like, what kind of impact have you made on other people? In fact, there's this axiom I love, and it took me years to understand it. And it was the wisest are the kindest to the raw. And I thought, well, why would that be? Wouldn't the wisest be like over it and so done with giving out free information and advice? But no, I think that when we're so new in anything we do, we have those blinders on. And often the blinders can be, yes, success is measured one way in your role, but really long term when it comes to your life, is that really success? And so I love how your book taps right into that mentality. So can we start with maybe first, I'd love to introduce what the 5 laws are. And then can we talk a little bit about how someone can really start to think today about implementing these themes into the way that they do business. And so for the 5 laws of stratospheric success, they're the law of value, the law of compensation, the law of influence, the law of authenticity, which I know is a hot topic here on LinkedIn, and the law of receptivity. So let's talk about the law of value for people. Can you kind of break that open and what that means to you?
Sure. And if you don't mind, can I put that against, if you will, the actual, what we would call the premise of the Go-Giver, and then why those laws, including the first one, would be so important as part of it.
Absolutely.
So,
Bob, you can do whatever you want.
well, thank you. You're such a wonderful host.
Yes, please. That'd be great.
So we would say it's this. It's that shifting your focus, okay, just like that gentleman had me do, right, from years ago. It's shifting your focus from getting to giving. Now, when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing so is not only, as you said, a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it also happens to be the most financially profitable way as well. But not for any kind of rah-rah, woo-woo, magical, mystical, type of reasons. It actually makes very logical, very rational sense. Because when you're that person who can take your focus off of yourself and place it onto serving others, right? Discovering what they need, what they want, what they desire. When you can move your focus off of yourself and onto helping them solve their problems and challenges, when you can take your focus off of yourself and make it all about moving them closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They certainly want to tell others all about you. So it's actually, there's nothing self-sacrificial or self-harming in taking your focus off yourself. One thing I say whenever I speak at sales conferences, one of the first things I'll say is this: nobody's going to do business with you because you have a quota to meet. Okay. They're not going to do business with you because you need the money. And they're not even going to do business with you just because you're a really nice person, right? Ultimately, they're going to do business with you only because they believe that they will be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And really, I can't think of any other reason why anyone would do business with you or with me or with anyone else other than for that reason. So when we say don't focus on the quota, it doesn't mean you don't have a quota. It doesn't mean you shouldn't hit your quota. You hopefully are gonna. It's just that the other person's not going to buy from you because of your quota. So it can't be about your quota. It can't be about your quota. It has got to be about how it's going to provide value to them. Once we understand that, now the 5 laws we talk about are going to make, a lot of sense. So the first one, as you said, the law of value. In this one, this is sort of the foundational law. And it says that your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear this, it's a little counterintuitive sounding. What? Give more in value than I take in payment? Isn't that a recipe for bankruptcy? But no, we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for this and be ecstatic that they did, while you also make a very, very healthy profit. And part of that value is not just the intrinsic value of what you're selling, which is, of course, very important, but it's the entire experience you provide. It's the entire feeling that they have through doing business with you. And this is what separates you from your competition, because let's face it, most people have, all the products are generally good, right? And so, what makes them really pay attention to you? What takes price out of the issue? What takes and it puts you in the forefront? Well, it's that they're buying from you.
Yeah.
They're buying from you before they're buying from your company. Okay.
And just to jump in there too, I think something that I hear a lot of my folks struggling with is, okay, Claire, I know I have to give value, right? I know I have to, say, for example, we're in front of a doctor and we're in medical sales, we're in front of a doctor and we know we've got this great product, but we know that it goes beyond that. We want them to buy into us and we want to help them just beyond what we're trying to sell, like you're sharing. What are some of those things that are of value that they're not typically thinking of?
So when it comes down to that, what we call extrinsic value, that which is over and above the actual product or service, you've got to be that additional value. Okay. So how do you communicate that?
Yeah.
Well, the good news is there are dozens, if not hundreds of ways to, but they tend to come down to 5, what John and I call elements of value. And these elements of value are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. And to the degree that you can communicate one or more, hopefully all 5 of those, at every single touch point with every single person that you deal with in that company. So whether it's the doctor himself or herself, whether it's the the person at the desk, or whether it's whomever, okay, to the degree that you can communicate those 5 elements of value at every touch point, from the initial time you meet them through the relationship building process, the follow-up, the follow-through, and the sales process and referral process, that's the degree to which you will take price and competition out of the picture. Each of those 5 are kind of a seminar in itself, but as you can imagine, all those 5 you can figure out, are all very important: excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation.
You should see the book I have written in every single margin. I'm still taking notes. Those are great. Okay. So, should we talk a little bit about how that feeds into the law of compensation?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So the law of compensation is says that your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So now, where law number 1 talked about giving more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 tells us the more people whose lives you touch with that exceptional value, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. This is what Nicole Martin, the CEO in the story, told Joe. Remember that, the law of value, that represents your potential income, but it's not enough to serve one customer, one doctor, one what have you. Okay.
Yeah.
Your income is really a matter of impact. How many lives are you touching? Now, of course, every time you touch one doctor's life, you're actually touching the lives of many, many, many people. But so to the degree that you're doing so, that's the degree that your income grows and grows. And so, we could say exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation.
Yeah, I heard yesterday someone mention that medical sales was one of the least scalable types of selling. And it's interesting because I think whenever we're in the sales seat, like you said, if you're touching one doctor's life, you're sharing that influence with all of their patients, right? Who should potentially use what you're selling. But I feel like there must be some other ways that people can think about scaling the impact that they have. Can you share a couple of ideas with us on that?
Well, first, having a referral-based business is a big help, because when you think of it, referrals have a number of benefits to them. One is that it's easier to set the appointment, because instead of all the different calls you have to make to finally get an appointment, with a referral, you're going in on borrowed influence. So it's simply easier to get that appointment in the first place. And obviously, the more people you're in front of, the more sales are going to take place. The next benefit is that with a referred prospect, price is less of an issue. It doesn't mean it's a non-issue or not an issue, but because of the borrowed influence, you're already positioned as a professional. You're already positioned as someone who this other doctor has spoken up for, right? And so you can now sell on high value rather than low price. The thing is, when you sell on low price, you're a commodity.
Right.
When you sell on high value, you're a resource.
Mm-hmm.
The next benefit of a referred prospect is that it's just so much easier to complete the transaction. This is a result of borrowed trust, or what we call vicarious experience. So no, this doctor has never done business with you personally, but someone who he or she knows, likes, and trusts has said, this is the only person you need to see. Absolutely. Not only is the product wonderful, but they'll take great care of you. They're on it. The company is right, and so forth. So it makes it so much easier. And then the fourth benefit of a referred prospect is that that's in their world, they see you as a sales professional, medical sales professional, who that's how you do business, because that's how they met you. So in their world, you meet your doctor clients through referral. You sell on high value rather than low price. You complete the transaction, and then you are referred to others as part of the process.
Yep. So at Traction Resume, we help position people like they are a brand of one. They're no longer commodities, because a lot of times when we are on the job market, it can feel very much like commodity-based selling when you're trying to get yourself into that next job. But really, I really want everyone to hear this and hear what Bob's saying today, because you are truly a category of one. And if you share these kinds of things about yourself, that's how you can represent it. In fact, things that we see all the time on resumes, for example, would be like, a trusted advisor. We see 15 years of experience. We see all the same things, which then you're selling on this commodity basis, because it's all, how many years do you have? Well, okay, if you have 12 years, he has 13 years. Well, then the 13-year guy is going to win, right? So, but I think that this is something that people can really leverage, because when you have this kind of influence, you do business on a referral basis, and you build those kinds of relationships to a point where it doesn't matter what you have anymore. People will let you in the door to talk about it. I think that's where people can really start to set themselves apart even further, so that they are that category of one. So that's a beautiful way to position yourself.
I think you stated it beautifully. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about the law of influence.
Okay. Yeah. The law of influence says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, so let me clarify right away. When we say place the other person's interests first, we do not mean that you should be a doormat, that you should be a martyr, or that you should be self-sacrificial. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's simply, as Joe learned from several of the mentors in the story, and as we alluded to earlier, the golden rule of business, certainly of sales, is that, again, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And you know what? There's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you and others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus, or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win.
Oh, that's powerful. And I think it leads right into the next one, which is the law of authenticity, because like you shared, even when you're describing it, like you can feel the difference between be concerned about them to be genuinely interested in what they care about and what is important to them. So can you dive into authenticity a little bit?
Sure. So the law of authenticity says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. Now, in this part of the story, Deborah Davenport, she shared a lesson she had learned early in her career. My apologies.
Oh, that's
early
okay.
in her career, and that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are very, very important. They're also all for naught. If you don't come at it from, I am so sorry. My phone is actually on. I checked. It's on silent.
That's okay.
Still, so
All
the
our
tech
computers
gods
are
yeah, sorry about that.
we get that too. There's a scene my husband and I laugh about often, and it's from The Office. And the intern creates an app where if you get a phone call, you also get a fax and a tweet and a message. And I feel like that's how we operate here.
Yeah.
It rings once, someone's knocking the door, I'm getting a text.
Exactly.
There goes the fax machine. So no worries.
Dogs barking, cats meowing.
Right.
And so, yeah. So all the skills in the world, it's so important, but they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They also feel comfortable with you. And most importantly, they feel safe. And that's so important when it comes to building and maintaining trust. Why? Because people really want to make sense. Human nature says we want to make sense of our world, yet we live in a world that often doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At least it doesn't seem to.
Right.
We crave consistency in a world that's often very inconsistent. So when we show up as ourselves, that's just such an advantage. Now, here's the thing, though, that I think is important. I believe, Claire, and I think this has really been more so with the advent of social media. The term authenticity has sort of morphed into some kind of new thing that anything goes as long as you're authentic. There's no limitations on what you can say or do. There's no boundaries. You can be an idiot, but you're authentic, so it's okay. You can. I got to tell you, I disagree with that. This is like the person. This is the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. No, what it means is this person has an authentic problem that they need to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of themselves. So, right. I think we have to understand that, what authenticity, my definition, I'm not saying I'm right, but it's my definition of authenticity is simply acting congruently with your values. I think when we do that, we're on the right track.
Wow, that's a great point. I wonder if it would be really interesting to see, as much focus as we put on like personality tests and the DISC assessment and the strengths finder. I wonder if companies now and teams are putting as much emphasis on identifying what our personal values are. And maybe they should be. I know when I was in the field, that wasn't something that was really part of the training or the team building, but I feel like that's a really incredible thing. And we often miss that key. But if we could focus on that a little better, it'd help us represent ourselves and to actually use that authenticity in the way that it should be.
Well, and you also know if the values of the company and of the leadership are aligned with the values of the sales professional and representative and so forth. So I think when there's a congruency organization-wide, that doesn't mean everybody's the same. Of course not. We're all individuals, but there's got to be a sense of a sense of values that are, where everybody's facing the same direction.
Yeah. At least what it says on the mission statement on the website. We got all
exactly.
Whatever it says.
Which most people probably don't even know what it is. And
right.
Most are,
So let's talk about that last law, because it was funny when it was introduced in the text in the book when I was reading, and I was listening to the book as well. I shouted it right out, and I don't know if it's because I'm immersed in LinkedIn and people are talking about this all the time, at least the law of reciprocity. But can you talk about the law of receptivity?
Sure. So the law of receptivity says that the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. What does this mean? It's really nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you've also got to breathe in. It's not one or the other. It's an and. It's both. You breathe out carbon dioxide and you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. They're really two sides of the very same coin, and they operate in tandem. The challenge, Claire, is that this is not the message we get from the world around us. Typically, messages about prosperity, well, let's put it this way. There is such an anti-prosperity theme in the world today, environment, if you will. It's crazy. You know, people look down their noses at people who are making a lot of money as though they must have done something wrong to get there. They must have built their fortune on the backs of others, or they must be dishonest, or they must. Now, of course, it's a big world. Lots of people do things we don't like. But no, to the degree, especially to the degree that you're working in a situation where no one's forced to do business with you, right? They do it on their own volition because they believe they're going to benefit. The only way you can make a lot of money is by providing a lot of value to a lot of people. You can't do it any other way. Remember, they're not buying so you meet your quota. They're buying because they're meeting their needs. Okay. And they see you as the best, most appropriate way for that to happen. But because of these anti-prosperity messages that we have from everything from upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, certainly social media, look at all the horrible anti-prosperity messages out there. It gets into a person's head, and insidiously, not the conscious that we could deal with, but the unconscious. And so if you grow up and you're receiving messages from all over the place that, the evil money and this and that, and dishonest and this, but you grow up being taught values of truth and honesty and integrity and kindness and all those things. And now you find yourself on the verge of making a lot of money. Well, there's a real disconnect there.
Yes.
Right?
Sure.
And so this is why I believe that we have got to absolutely make a study of prosperity. And there are great people out there, great teachers who this is all they speak on. They blog on it. They do videos on it. They have all these different people like Randy Gage, people like Sharon Lecter, people like David Nagel, people like Ken Honda, people like Ellen Rogan, and there's so many others who do such a wonderful job. And I read their blogs, I watch their videos, because we all have to. The anti-prosperity garbage is out there all over the place. So we need to actively seek out that good, healthy, pro-prosperity, pro-abundance information. Here's the thing. Well, I say here's the thing, like, I know. My opinion. I'm leaning in.
I'm
ready.
Lay it on me, Bob.
I'm a student, always searching. So, but my feeling is this, that what we need to understand is it's not, are you a giver or a receiver? You're a giver and a receiver. Okay? It's got to be both. But here's what we all do know. The giving comes first. This is universal law. These are laws of nature, of human nature, of economic nature, of physical nature. Claire, we plant before we harvest, right? We sow before we reap. Right. We give before we receive. It's like Pindar said to the protege Job early in the story. Some people approach a fireplace with the idea of, first you give me some heat and some fire, then I'll throw on some logs and some newspaper and light them. Well, it doesn't work that way. Imagine going to a bank and saying, hey, I'd like to open up an account here, but first give me an interest payment. No, life doesn't work that way. Right. And so we've got to respect the truths. So, but I would say this, when you're out there, just doing what you're doing, you're providing such immense value to the world. Every time a doctor decides to do business with you, you're helping him or her to help their clients.
Right.
I'll never forget the time I was reading a book written by a friend of mine. Her name is Lisa Earl McLeod. She wrote a book called Leading with Noble Purpose and then Selling with Noble Purpose. And she talked about the time that she was brought into a pharmaceutical company to discover why the top producers were the top producers. And she was speaking with one person who was like second in the entire nation. I mean, she was just amazing and had done okay for a few years. Then all of a sudden, for like the last 2 years, she was just right. And she said, so what was it? What was the difference maker? She says, so one day I'm in a doctor's office. I had checked in with the receptionist, took my seat, and a woman came over, not elderly, but kind of getting up there. And she came over to her and she said, did I hear you say that you're a sales rep with, and she named the company. She goes, yes. She said, yes, I am. Aren't you the producers of, and she named a certain medication. She said, yes, we are. And the woman said, I got to tell you, you gave me my life back. I was always in pain and I was tired and I couldn't get out of bed. And my grandchildren couldn't play with me and we had no relationship. And she said, once I went on this medication, she started telling the story about how she's playing with her grandchildren and taking them out everywhere. And she said, and so this woman says to the rep says to Lisa, she said, Lisa, at that point, I realized I wasn't in the business of selling pharmaceuticals. I was in the business of giving people their lives back.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. So when you think about what you're doing, you're giving so much value that you've earned the right, not the entitlement, the right to receive. But you've got to be able to allow yourself to do that.
Oh, wow. That's so powerful. And you're right. There is this mental block, I think, for a lot of us, and where you feel like, if I should be open to higher salary, accepting bonus, expecting and anticipating to receive for my efforts, like it's wrong, or it's not true, or it's not, genuine or worthy. But really, having been in a similar situation to that patient myself, it is worthy.
Absolutely.
And without people who are going at it day after day to really work that funnel and to really serve that physician and to really nurture that office and to make sure that they have their trays clean before every procedure, and they have samples stocked for every office that needs them, and tests at the ready, in my case, right in pathology, with that wonderful but wonderful wild world of pathology that it is. Without that, someone on the other end, yourself, your friend's grandmother, may not be able to receive that care and have that time with those grandchildren.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's incredible.
But when you start questioning your worthiness as to receiving, just question your premise. Why? Why wouldn't I, when I'm providing such an amazing service, would I not just embrace receiving?
Yeah. Oh, I'm getting chills in this conversation. Okay. So, Bob, I know we're about, to the hour here. I want to give a quick opportunity for maybe you to chat a little bit about where people can engage with you further, can find out more, so that if they want to start implementing the go-giver mentality in their life and in their business, how should they go about it?
Yeah,
where do they find you?
Yeah, best way is just burg.com. I'm a very simple man. I'm also old enough to have gotten the burg.com website.
Well done. I wish I had been.
Yeah.
That's great. I wish I'd got on Davis. Well done.
Yeah. And so while they're there, they can, if they'd like, they can download any of the books in the series, in the Go-Giver series, to see if they can download the first chapter to see if they like it, then click through. While they're there, they can subscribe to my daily impact email. I send those out 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, if they go to burg.com, there'll be a little annoying pop-up thingy that tells them they can subscribe to it. And yeah, I would just suggest that.
Awesome. Well, you guys don't miss out. I know that Bob, I'm so grateful to have you on the show today. I know that I shared with you that your book was very formative for us personally, professionally, certainly in my business. And I'm just so thrilled that you not only have these incredible resources in the world, but also that you continue to put them out there. Guys, there are multiple Go Giver books. We've got, incredible conferences that Bob is doing. And now I'm definitely going to subscribe to your newsletter, which I did not know about before. So thank you so much for joining me today. I cannot tell you how grateful I am. And I really appreciate your time.
Well, this has been a pleasure and you're a joy. Keep up the great work.
Awesome.